Welcome back. Today we're going to tie Kelly Galloup's Bangtail TNA. We're going to do the full-size version today. We're going to do this in a gray and white, kind of like a little whitefish mix, shad, whatever it may be, whatever, you got gray and white in your river system, in your water system, I should say. Gray and white seems to be a pretty universal color, whether it's some of the creek chubs or whitefish or whatever it is. It's a color that I fish a ton. This is an amazing pattern to fish. When they are on flies that you can just absolutely rip through the water, a foot to a foot and a half below the surface, it is just, this is one of the ones that I go to, these swim flies. They are so much fun to fish. Now I will say that I catch a lot more fish on flies that are more versatile, something that you can do a jig with, something that you can hit different sections in the water column. And that's because, some days they're just not chasing and you have to be a little more enticing. But on the days that they're chasing, man, there is nothing better than ripping a big bright fly that you can see and seeing just a big brown or whatever predatory fish you're targeting come up and just smash it. And that's the whole reason that we're out there. Yeah, everybody loves catching big fish and throwing streamers, but when you can get the days that they're chasing stuff, that nothing compares to it. Nothing. You can throw all the dry flies in the world that you want, nothing compares to that. But anyhow, we're going to go into the tying on this one, and this is a full-size version. We're going to tie this with a size 2 MFC 7050 for the back hook and a 1/0 in the front, so it's a lot of fly, especially when you throw in the deceiver tail. And obviously, you can scale these up and down, but we're going to go with the full-size one here. As soon as I can find my thread, we'll get started on this, and I'm just going to get a good thread base down to start. Just a nice quick wrap right through there, and then I'm going to trim that off, and we're going to go into our deceiver tails. Don't drop my connection wire. So I picked two tails out that are pretty similar. This is off of, or that are, really similar. They're almost perfect. This is off of a whiting American saddle. These things are a great value. I don't know how many flies that you can get just the deceiver tails out of there. And that's just the pairs for the deceiver tails. You can probably get, as long as you're tying different sizes and you're not tying all one size, you can probably get 50 to 75 flies out of that right there. Such a great value, and the quality is just phenomenal. So from there, we are going to go to measuring this out, and I'm going to take this back right to this point on my material clip, or right to where I have that ring eye in there. That's my measurement that I use for these on this size. On other sizes, obviously, I move it up and down a little bit, but this is the size that I'm going to, or that's the length that I'm going to use for this full-size bangtail. So I'm just going to pair those two up. I'm going to set them right on top of the hook, run those to the back, and then I'm just going to catch some of that stuff right on the top just to give me a little bit of extra grab on that material. And you can see those things just lay back there perfectly. With zero effort. Back in the day when it was just the stuff that you would grab out of the packs, it would be all twisted and everything. That's like a perfect section right there. You can't ask for anything better. So we're going to add some flash to this. I'm going to take a couple of strands. Somewhere between 3 and 5 strands is what I typically like to go with on this. It's a little bit bigger of a fly, so I'll flash it a little bit more. I think we're sitting at about 5 strands here. I'm not getting I'm not getting carried away with the flash on this. I just want something to supplement what we're going to have in the body, because we're going to have UV puller in the body on this one, and I want to take that back about 3/4 of the way and then just run that back, get that secured into place, and then double this over and run it laterally on this top, or on this side right here. So there we go. And then make sure that is going to be running laterally for me. And this is all a personal preference as to how you do this. Sometimes I'll change it up a good bit. Sometimes I'll let that flash go past my tails, just to give a little bit of extra. But for the most part, when I'm tying these, or anything with a deceiver tail really, I cut them usually at about the 3/4 point. But like I said, sometimes I like it to where there's just a little bit of flash kicking off the back, so I change it up. I mean, there's not really one way that I do it consistently. It's just whatever I'm in the mood for that day type thing, I guess. So now we're going to go into starting to form the body on these. And might have the hiccups starting here. Hope not. Hope not. I don't know where that came from. I'm going to go to starting to form the body on this. Now, on the smaller versions of this, I'll take just one plume of Marabou and I'll set that right down the center and let it run down the back. But for the bigger version, I want more sparse pieces of Marabou to start in the back, but I use 2 of them. And I'm just going to run this right down the side on this one. And I'm going to put this in on my side. Just tie that into place, get it secured. Run this down to my midway point, or my halfway point. Set that in, trim that off. And then I'm going to go with another sparse section. I picked a couple out here. I just threw a bunch on the table. I want a sparse section, and I don't go with heavy Marabou on this because I'm putting 2 in. If I'm tying a smaller version, I'll go with a little heavier piece of Marabou just to kind of fill it out a little bit. But like I said, because I'm putting 2 in here on this back, I want to start sparse, so I can build bulk as I go forward, or build a taper, build volume as I go forward. So I start sparse on these 2. Now, like I was just saying, if it's a smaller version, I'll go with something maybe a little webbier, or with a little bit more bulk to it to kind of fill that out. But that's what I'm after right there for this section. So now what I'm going to do is go into, same thing, it's a pretty sparse piece right here, but this is just MFC barred hack, or barred Marabou, and it's just a white and gray. Very subtle on the gray as well, as you can see as it sits right there. Very subtle as this sits. So I want that going right over the top. I'm not putting 2 sections in, I just want that to sit right like that. It'll kind of move to where it needs to be once it's in the water and it's wet. Another thing that I'll say on this, when I tie these, if it's a smaller version, I skip that back step altogether. I won't even throw those in, and this is really going to be kind of difficult to see here. Let me try and change the lighting up a little bit. Yeah, that's not as bright. I haven't found the perfect mixture on tying lighter flies, yellows and whites and everything on the lighting. I think I toned that down a touch there, so that should be a little bit easier to see, hopefully, when I'm on the editing process. Maybe I can dial that in. But But anyhow, like I was saying, on the smaller versions, I won't even tie these back sections in right here. I'll just go right to the center and then run those back right to where I'll have it on this one here. So I'll skip those 3 plumes of Marabou on the smaller ones. But because this is so big, if you don't have it in there, it can kind of look a little skinny on the way back. So I tend to tie those in for the ones that I personally use. Now we're going to go into our body material, and we're going to take this to the halfway point, tie that in, and halfway down the hook I'm going to half hitch. This is a silver UV puller. It pairs really well with the silver holographic Flashabou that we tied in going back the tail. It's a really clean transition between the two, and it really makes the body stand out a lot as well. So now we're just going to go right to our half hitch point. Just fold that UV puller back, get that out of the way, get a secure wrap right there, and then right over the top, clean this stuff up really well. Thread got a little lengthy on me there. And then we have a nice tie-in point for our Marabou here. Get back there. Okay, so there that's sitting. I'm gonna go back to the white. Now, just like any other time that you're stacking Marabou on a body as you're going forward, no matter if it's Marabou, if it's Chickaboo, whatever it may be, start sparse in the back and build your bulk as you go to the front. So I'm purposely picking pieces that are a little bit more sparse for this back section. I'm gonna grab my Marabou. I'm gonna measure this out against the top portion. Man, at a minimum, I want to reach the halfway point on that last stack of Marabou. I don't want to go the whole way up here, obviously, but I want at a minimum the halfway point, which would be, that's a little bit past halfway right there. Probably can't see with my thumb in the way, but I may have to switch to a different angle on that one so it comes through better on the video. But like I was saying, at a minimum, I want the halfway point on that Marabou. So go ahead and tie that in, work your way to the front, leaving a little bit in the front so you don't rush that eye, you don't crowd it or anything, and you're still able to tie that stuff in. I'll just peel that back so it stays out of my way for now, and then go back to my tie-in point, and we're going to go back to the MFC Marabou. Remembering as you go forward, you're adding bulk, so find pieces that gradually increase in bulk going forward. Once again, finding the halfway point, right about there is where we're at. Grab this, go 1, 2, pretty firm wraps, and then you're good to just take this stuff all the way to the front. Before I get to the front, I'm going to tie in this UV puller once again. And we'll work our Marabou forward with our thread. Just adding a little bit of bulk, a little bit of a taper to our body. And it gives it a little bit more traction when you're ripping this UV puller through there. A little bit more traction. So now once again, take that UV and just work it forward. Give 3 to 4 wraps, anchor it in. 3 to 4 and anchor. And I'm leaving myself about 1/8 of an inch in the front to tie in my last stacks of Marabou. on my back hook. I really don't know if I'm going to like the lighting that I have for this white fly on that back camera. I gotta figure something out. I mean, I'll get the gist of it, but that tail really seems like it's just, that's what I need. I need to cut light down in the front. Anyhow, I'm talking to myself as I'm going here trying to figure out what the hell I'm actually doing. I'm making it all up as I go, so bear with me. Hopefully eventually I can get this all figured out, so if I cut my light down in the front, I get more visibility in the back camera angle, but that'll probably mess up my front one. Honestly, like I said, I have no clue what the hell I'm doing here. I'm shooting from the hip entirely, so hopefully it's a decent video as far as detail on that back camera goes. But continuing on, I didn't like how that was sitting. Same as before, hitting the minimum of the halfway point on your Marabou. Minimum of the halfway point. One set's right there. Get 1, 2 fairly secure wrap. Clean that up with a few extra wraps of thread. Move that away from the eye, and then we'll just take this and trim that out. There we go. Progressing in thickness or webbiness, whatever adjective you want to use as you're moving forward, just to fill that fly out with a heavier section in the front. I think that one may look all right. No, definitely not. Definitely not. We'll go with that one. We'll go with that one. Adding a little bit of bulk as we go forward on the top plume as well. And that'll work here. That'll work. It's right on the borderline of being a little bit too sparse, but that'll definitely work. Couple of wraps right in the front of that section. Clean that up, and then we're just going to take this right over the top once again. Form a nice thread head on the back section, and then go ahead and tie this off with a whip finish. And there we go. We'll grab our wire to go. Yeah, that'll work. I'm going to grab the articulation wire, and then I'm going to go with 2 blue beads on this. For whatever reason, I used to always be white fly, red beads, red eyes, and I still am to an extent. Unless there's gray in it, then it automatically goes to blue. I have no idea why. It just looks appealing to me. The Octobers that I started tying a while back with the gray and white in them, they automatically got the blue eyes from MFC, and then obviously the blue beads to accompany it. Does it make one damn bit of difference? No, not at all. Whatever you like to do as a tyer, though. I mean, I don't know. I like breaking. That's a good one there. I got lucky. Didn't go to the barb. I like breaking stuff up a lot. Just to break up the monotony, I tie just an insane amount of flies. And a lot of the times, it's the same fly over and over and over just to fill the bins up, to fill orders, whatever it may be. So I just like breaking up some color combinations. It keeps me interested, I guess. Not interested, it just, I don't know what the hell it really does, honestly. I'm just rambling at this point, trying to justify in my head as to why certain colors get certain colors of eyes and beads and everything when it really doesn't make a damn bit of difference. Not one bit. Anyhow, moving on. Connecting our back hook here. Like I said before, this is a 1/0 for the back hook. I want a little bit of extra kick on this backside. That's way too much there though. I'm going to go about 1.5 times the width of my bead for my loop right there. I'm going to get that where I want it, and then I'm going to flip this around, just make one wrap underneath, and then we'll go right through on this section up to about where we're going to start our laser dub head. I'm going to pull this around on one side and then get them on the opposite as well. Right like so. Just to double that wire over. A little bit of extra security. There we go. Now we'll get that in the material clip back here. And we're back to the white Marabou now. That's garbage. So just like we did before on the back section of the back hook, I'm going to double these up, running them down the side, because working them around the hook point right here can sometimes make it a little bit more difficult. It won't be as clean, so I'm going to go with some thinner pieces once again, and then also making sure that I'm getting back to at least the halfway point. I'm going to set this into place right like that, getting to my halfway point on the previous stack of Marabou, and I'm working this down the side for my cover. Another thing that you can do here, if you would like, is throw some more flash down the side for lateral lines or whatever it is. The UV puller's enough for me. I typically don't run extra flash. Every once in a while I will, but I really, like I said, I think the UV puller's enough flash in this, and I don't want to really over flash it, so that's how I tie mine. But if you want more flash, by all means, that's a good spot before you tie in your Marabou to get a couple extra lateral lines going back that way. Or if you want to break it up a little bit, a good thing, I guess, I just thought of this right now, I've never tied it on my own. Something maybe that I would do, instead of throwing the extra flashes, maybe just get some black Flashabou and run it down in there. It'll be a little color breakup between the two, but whatever you want to do, get as creative as you want on the color combinations. So now back to the MFC barred Marabou. I want this piece. That looks like it's going to be pretty good. That looks like it's going to be pretty good. Back to the barred MFC Marabou. Making sure once again that you're going to the halfway point on that last stack. Get that measured out to where you want it. I'm going to peel that back just slightly, right about there, and then tie that in. Make sure that I'm nice and even at my point where I let off right there. You know, I don't have the white all the way back here and then leaving off with the barred section up there. Make sure that it's nice and even. And then I'm just going to work this thread to the halfway point on the body. Halfway point, like I described before on this, not counting for the head that you're tying in. Okay, so the halfway point on the body itself. This right here is all going to be a laser dub head. Don't count that as the body. Your halfway point is going to be at your tie-in point where your materials are tied in, and then right there as well. Actually, I'm going to cut that down just slightly. I'm going to add about 1/8 right there. So all of this threaded portion, it's going to be your body. Don't account for this portion because that's all the head. It'll throw your proportions off. It'll throw your, you'll wind up lengthening your Marabou out and it just won't look right. So make sure that you're accounting for it that way. That white is garbage. It's going right to the brush pile. That one is junk as well. I'm gonna have to pick out some more Marabou. This one may be a little too sparse. We'll see what it looks like. Actually, I know it's going to be too sparse. So as I move forward on these, and let me get my puller chenille tied in here before I go explaining this. As I move forward onto the front hook, not this section right here where I'm using it as a skirt, but the middle section and the front section for sure. If I don't have enough bulk in a piece of Marabou, automatically I'm going to double it up, and that's probably what I'm going to wind up doing from here forward. That white's just a little too sparse for me, so I'm probably going to wind up using 2 pieces. So once again, go back to the UV puller, couple of turns right through there, anchor it, couple of turns, anchor right to your halfway point. And that looks good right there. Get that secured into place, trim this off. If you want to, you can leave that tied in while you're throwing your Marabou stacks in. It's a pain in the ass in my opinion, and it only takes me a couple of seconds to retie it in. So I just trim it. I have a clean platform to work on. I'm not worrying about fighting any material, so I always cut that stuff off. But if you want to and you want to save a little bit of time, that's one way you can do it. But it winds up being, unless you have something really holding it out of your way, it winds up being quite a pain. So I just trim that puller chenille off. Here we go again, finding your halfway point. As you can see, that plume is really sparse and it's a little chewed up on the tips. So I'm using that as my bottom piece just to add a little bit of flat or a little bit of fill to it before I get this heavier section in there. Measure that out again. Slightly longer than the piece that I just tied in. That's going to add a little bit of extra bulk and help with my taper moving forward. So I've got 2 stacks right there. Trim that off. Bring this down. We're going back to the halfway point. Everything looks good. And then from here forward, I'm going with 2 stacks. This MFC barred Marabou, I love the looks of it, everything. Typically, it's a little more on the sparse side. As I get to the front, I typically like this stuff that is almost like a woolly bugger Marabou. I mean, I still keep it nice and make sure that it's nice and straight. You know, at the tips, it's not all chewed up like some of that woolly bugger stuff is, but some of it, it's just so webby and it fills things out so nice that I use that a lot on a lot of my stuff where I'm stacking Marabou. So right there we have that. That's just a sparse piece right there. Try and find something with a little bit more bulk. But like I said, on this MFC stuff, they pick through this so well and they select it. I mean, they're almost all perfect plumes of Marabou. But sometimes that can be a detriment when you're wanting a little bit more bulk. Alright. Set that right over the top again. Like I said before, slightly longer if anything. But if they're nice clean tips, I'll just line them up. Working my way to the back, even tie-in points again. I'm just gonna go a little bit further back on that. Nice clean section right there. And back to our UV puller. I should have picked a darker color on this. I'm really not happy with that back camera angle, but Did want to highlight the color combination that I use on this for the gray and white a lot. It's just such a successful combination for me, not only on this pattern but a lot of others. The October here lately, my goodness, that color combination has just been deadly. It's been sticking some really big fish. There's one loop caught right there. Alright, back to our UV, and I'm gonna fit one more wrap in there. One more quick wrap. I'll go ahead and trim that section off, set that right there, and then I'm gonna take a couple of wraps back, maybe 2 wraps back over top of that UV puller, just to lay it all in. Everything's how we want it there. And we're going to go back to our white, which I need to pick more out here. Need to pick out more white. Oh, I'm going to try and find some thicker pieces here, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it. There's one, and there we go. That's going to be a good top piece right there to throw over top. Top piece to throw over top. Who would have guessed that? Alright. Back in here with you. I thought I was doing good. I had a bunch of it picked out, but some of it was just garbage, so. Marabou flying everywhere. Yeah, I can go into the brush pile as well. Alright, so these are going to be our last stacks of Marabou. We're going to throw 4 plumes in all together, making sure once again that we're going back to our halfway point, measuring out your Marabou as you tie it in. And then with this right here, I just run this right to the eye. I leave just a little bit of a gap right there, and I do this so my tie-in points for the laser dub aren't bumpy. It's consistent the whole way through. If I would have took and cut that right there, I'd wind up with a bump, and then when I place my eyes on, the eyes wind up kicking forward on you, and that winds up making things pretty messy. Just looks really bad, and then your eyes will definitely fall off quicker if they're not on a solid platform. So I just run that Marabou the whole way to the front. It gives me a nice sturdy foundation for those eyes to go on to. Once again, doubling this up, heavier as we go forward, getting those stacks all tied in, making sure that everything's good, stopping just shy of the eye of this one-aught, trimming that off, making sure that your eye is nice and clear. Don't go throwing material the whole way up there and then you wind up with a really crowded eye. You got material sticking all through that, and it just, you know, one may have a tough time getting your tippet all in there if it's all crowded and real bulky. 2, it just looks sloppy when you do it that way. So we're just about to the end of this, to where we're going to start building the head. We're going to go, if you have a piece of Marabou that is not the best, that's a little bit chewed up, that's a little bit beat up, whatever it may be, use that on your bottom section. Just like I'm doing right here, that piece is really sparse. It's got a couple busted feathers, or a couple busted fibers throughout the run of it. So I'll just use that on the bottom. It's just a filler, that's all it is. Running that right like so. And then I want one good piece right on the top. That is not one of them. Neither's that. There we go. Nice even tips. Consistency throughout the feather. Set that in, get that off to the side. Wet that material down. Easier to control, it's not flying all over the place on you. There we go. Last piece of marabou that we're tying in before we start with the laser dub. Just get that tied in and secure. And then once again, I'm working that right in front of the eye that I have tied in. There you can see our stacks are nice and even going all the way back. We're hitting that halfway point all the way through there, getting that nice consistency, building that taper as we go forward. And then we're ready to do the laser dub head on this. So what we're going to do with the laser dub head, really simple. We're going to throw V's on the 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. Finish it up, throw some eyes on there, this fly's done. So I'm just going to set all this off to the side. Pick all this stuff out now. Typically on this, I'll mix a little bit of black into the silver minnow belly that I'm using, but I don't think I'm going to do that on this one. That's the minnow belly. You can use a straight gray if you want and mix some stuff in there. I don't think I'm going to do that. I'm going to leave this. I just lied. I'm going to take one piece of black, just one little streak, and I'm going to have that right in the front, because that's going to be the difference of what catches fish right there. Just like the blue beads. Really, it's just, we do so much of this for the fly tire. You could throw a straight white and gray all the way through there and you're probably not going to catch any more fish than if you had a mixed color on the back section, but us fly tires are more picky than the fish, guaranteed. So tie in that laser dub right there. I'm going to do the same on the top. Make sure that you get these fibers nice and even through there. Take that, bend it right around, and then place that on the top. There you go. Go 1 in front, 2 in front, pull down, and it locks that into place for you. So now we'll go back to the white. Once again, just evening up those fibers. And you can see that nice clean platform that we have right there. I mean, it's a little bit bulky because we have 4 stacks of marabou in there, but it's better than the alternative. Like I said, if you would have cut all of your marabou right there, you would have went from that to a flat bare hook, and it would kick your eyes off to the side and make them really difficult to get secured in there. So I don't know if I like that. I didn't like how that one was sitting. There we go. Caught a little bump there. There we go. Nice and clean. Everything's better now. Running nice and clean on the bottom, and then like I said, I'm just going to take that one little streak of black here. I'm going to mix that in, not really well though. I just want that one little streak of black to be prominent up in the front. Making making sure that my eye's clear. Just push that back ever so slightly, make sure I got a nice clean platform to whip finish, and you can see a little bit of that black shining through on the front section. Get a quick whip finish. 1, 2, 3. We're good to go. Now, before I put the eyes on, which I'm going to use some 8mm fish skull eyes for this. They're going to be also along the bluish tint. Typically before, like I said, if I was tying a white fly, any sort of white to it, it was getting red eyes. That's before I saw the blue eyes from MFC. So for whatever reason, they just look good to me, and that's what I use. Even that stuff out. I'm not going to trim this just yet. Like I said, 8mm eyes for these. A little bit of a blue tint to them. I'm going to go to the Loctite gel now. And one right there. One right there. Make sure that my eyes are pointing the direction that I want them. Just set them in right between the two stacks. Kick that back just a touch, but your gel's going right in between the two stacks that you tied in of the laser dub. We've got the gel going back in between the two eyes now. We've got them set into place. That one wanted to move on me just a touch. Get over here. Wanted to move on me just a touch, but we got them nice and evened out now. And I'm just going to hold this in here for a couple of seconds. It's going to allow that glue to press in between the two eyes and everything, and then it's going to lock itself together. Those eyes aren't going anywhere. You don't have to put any UV finish or anything like that on there. And then all I'm going to do is just get a nice trim on this head. I'm just working it right back. It's just, I'm not spending a ton of time worrying about a lot of detail or anything. And then same thing, I'm just standing this up, and I'm gonna go and round that off. It's gonna run back into the Marabou stacks. And then there's that nice little black streak right in the front there that I was after. That's going to make all the difference in the world. Make sure you put that in there. Oh, goodness. It looks good to me. Leave me the hell alone. Anyhow, that is a lot of fly right there. Like I said, when they are chasing down swim flies, there's nothing better as a streamer fisherman. There's nothing better as a fisherman, in my opinion. When they're chasing these flies down, that you can just absolutely rip through the water, run them as fast as you can, and they're just all over the place. There's nothing better. And having something that you can see in like a white or a yellow or something like that makes it even that much better. You're able to track it and watch the fish all the way back. But there is Kelly Galloup's Bangtail TNA, the supersized version, I guess you would say. Give that a quick spin, and like you can see on this right here with that laser dub head, and there's no bulk to that whatsoever. It's just the profile that you're after. That rips through the water so fast, and it catches the different currents, and it just bounces all over the place. It's such a fun fly to fish. But anyhow, like I said, that's Kelly Galloup's Bangtail TNA in the gray and white. If you guys have questions or comments, leave them with me and I'll get back to you. Thanks as always for watching. We'll catch you next Wednesday.